Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your host, Luke Beestall, and I have an international female, powerful entrepreneur. That's what I'm going to say. Yes, so she's waving. You'll see this. Denise, she's currently living in a tropical island called Bali. She took a leap of faith from her home country, USA, and she is now living in paradise, literally living in paradise. We're going to delve deep into her story, but just to give you guys that's listening and watching this a bit of an intro, she's an author. She's a is it hypnotist or hypnotherapist? I don't want to get it wrong.
Hypnotherapist. That's
okay,
good.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure because I know people's terms are quite clear. She's also a self-love expert with, am I right in saying 25 years experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, 25 years experience. So we're going to delve into that because obviously you can imagine being in business that amount of time, there's going to be a lot to obviously talk about the realness, the behind the scenes stuff that social media will never be able to give us. But also, she is a Tony Robbins trainer. Now, I absolutely love Tony Robbins. I've been to one of his Unleash the Power Within. I say UPW, but you might be thinking, what is that? In person, 4-day event, electric. So she does so many coaching sessions, and I know she's been stoked to be working alongside him. But do you know what? I'm going to zip it now, and I'm going to welcome Denise into our show.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Luke, so much for having me.
No, it's great. I mean, I've said this on a couple of episodes, but I'm really going to say this so boldly that there was things that you were sharing whilst we was off air. Because we was just catching up, weren't we? Like, so, because obviously we had a phone call quite a while ago now, and we was just sort of chatting, weren't we? Just, oh, how's things been, since we last spoke? And honestly, the stuff you shared, I really wish I tapped record. So we'll get into that stuff, but sort of for anyone, because obviously I know we did the brief intro, but for anyone sort of understanding a bit more about who you are as a person, could you give our audience just a little bit more insight to that in terms of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been an entrepreneur for, oh my God, almost 16 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I started as a yoga teacher, owned a yoga studio in Los Angeles, and did that for 6 years, and then segued into the coaching world in 2018, which is what I'm doing today. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey because you hear self-love expert, and it's like, well, how the hell do you become a self-love expert? And it really has everything to do with my own healing process and the 25 years plus of inner work that I've done to make a lot of discoveries to heal everything from borderline personality disorder to suicidal depression, anxiety, PTSD, childhood sexual abuse, my gosh, bankruptcy. Like I have healed so many things, and I don't wear them as a badge of honor. I wear them as, they were initiations for me to help other people. And when I made this discovery all these years ago that my path was actually never about me, and it was like, I was always seeking love as a child. And so, I observe a lot, and I look around, and I'm like, what was the one thing that I could never truly grasp, that I tried to grasp outside of myself? And that was always love, until now. Right. And so this is a big part of what I teach people, because it doesn't matter where you are in business or life or whatever it is. If you don't have the depth to meet yourself, you're never fully going to get to where you want to go.
So thank you for sharing that. And that's so true. Yeah. I can relate to that. Obviously, you do some amazing things. I mean, even just talking about a few of those things that you've worked with, and obviously you've healed yourself and you've healed others, I think is very, very commendable. Like, seriously, I love that. I think it's great that you're doing that and giving back to people in that way. How would somebody know, like as a signal, or as if they was feeling a certain way where maybe they would need to start possibly looking at healing themselves or finding that love? You know what? Because I think that's a really good angle.
Yeah, start recognizing your patterns. Like start noticing What are the loops? Where do you keep getting stuck? Are you continuing to attract certain kinds of relationships? Same relationship, different person, right?
Right.
Notice the way that you harbor your emotions. Notice the way that you actually care for yourself. Are you digging yourself into the ground, trying to make it, or trying, or what does success really mean to you, right? Are you an overachiever? Are you a high achiever? Are you fulfilled in your life, right? These are all the things that you really want to look at, because everything that I do has aspects of self-love. It's all the foundation of self-love is everything that I teach and share with people, because it's really mind, body, and spirit, right? And when we have that disconnect from ourselves, and let's say we're living in the box, right? We can call this the matrix, or we can call this
Yeah.
whatever, the I don't know, what is it in the matrix, the blue pill or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it notice where you're in your cycles, right? Are you in the eat, sleep, work and entertainment cycle, or are you striving for more? And the thing is that one thing that I did learn from Tony was that he always says that business is a spiritual practice, and it really is, because it tests every part of you. It really does. I mean, it's not, we have this bright idea when we want to start a business, and we're like, oh my God, it's going to be this and it's going to be this. And then, over time, you start to lose steam after that excitement starts to wear away. And this is where rubber meets the road. This is where you start to learn to meet yourself. And this is where you start to really learn, like, oh my God, what are my limiting beliefs? What are the things that I actually believe about myself that are causing me to react or respond or attract in this way, right? All of this has everything to do with it. So it's just like everybody on this planet has some sort of healing to do in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's
I
just a
think. I think.
matter, are you willing to see it,
Well, that's it. Are you willing to sort of see the truth and work with it, right? Because obviously we do live in a world, I guess, where we love to avoid, we love to step back, we love to be quiet and just bottle it up and possibly not face the reality, right? So I love that piece there, and I'm going to just relay it in a way just to the audience for them to understand, because there's some really good stuff there, especially the part about the patterns, right? The loops, what's going on there, like it could be like eat, sleep, train, repeat, right? Or basically eat, work, sleep, repeat, and there's not much in between that. And I think that'd be really, cool for the guys that are listening to this, is just check in with themselves on where their patterns are now. But I think obviously for you sharing this, you've got a wealth of experience. Like I say, we introduced you. I mean, 25 years is amazing. For you said very early on about you was seeking, you was looking for that love piece when you was a child.
Yeah.
Where did you find that in you? Like, where did that come from for you to go and find that? Because I know so many people just avoid that.
Well, it was because, growing up in a household that was very chaotic and dysfunctional, and being born with borderline personality disorder, not knowing it until I was in my 20s, I
Okay.
was more seen as like a moody child or the problem child, although I had a lot of charisma and I got very good grades. I was very emotionally unstable, and I was really, I just wanted love. Like, even when a teacher asked me in primary school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it wasn't a doctor or an astronaut. I just said, I want love.
Wow.
Like, I know, right?
That's different, right? That'd catch me
It's
off guard as a
different.
teacher.
It's different. And I
Yeah.
remember saying that, and I remember looking to everything outside of me. Oh, love must be that. Okay, I'm going to watch movies. So if I act like that character, then I'll have love. Somebody will love me, right? And I did that over and over and over again, because with borderline you don't really have an identity. So I didn't create my identity until I was 28. which sounds very odd, but I took on a lot of identities until I created my own when I went into treatment and left my corporate job. So the thing is that going through this path and this journey has been the greatest gift, because it was like one day I just woke up and I was like, I will never find it outside of me. I have to become it. Okay. Right. And so that gave me a whole new set point of restructuring my patterns so that I was no longer seeking outside validation for what my spirit already knew of me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the within part, the internal part, is something that, the guys that have followed through this show have heard a lot from the guests, and again, you obviously you've said it in a very different way, and it was so meaningful of the way you said it, which was great. It's authentic, just going within, sort of, you want to become it, because sort of identity, especially identity loss. I mean, I can put my hands up and say I've been in that in a couple of times in different paths that I've been on. There's something I want to touch on, Denise, because the part where you said I didn't truly build my identity till I was 28, and obviously this borderline personality disorder, you sort of, again, it come from childhood, it come from just chaos and dysfunctional, like living at home. You were in a corporate role. So how did you, obviously you said you went into treatment, but what did you actively do? Because obviously it comes from you, right? So what did you actively do to build that identity? How did you know that it was like, oh, I feel like me, sort of thing? Because obviously you never knew what that was.
Well, honestly, I didn't feel like me until like, I mean, a decade later, even after that,
Okay.
because it took a while to build that. I started building the foundation at 28. So when I left my corporate job to save my life, I went into dialectical behavior therapy. And that's basically like a mindfulness focus on cognitive behavior therapy. And so I was in treatment for 10 hours a week. And it was a full-time job in itself. And so I had to rewire and start relearning, because they really teach you how to start working with interpersonal relationships, how to start dealing with emotional distress. And through all of that, I was basically given this blank canvas. And my facilitator, it was like, okay, well, who do you want to be? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I want to be a kind and compassionate person. So then I started practicing being a kind and compassionate person. And then I recognized that because I'd been a yogi since I was 20, and that was the only thing that would ease my suffering. And I wanted to become a yoga teacher, but I didn't really believe in myself at that stage, because I thought, well, I have a mental illness. Who's going to want to learn from me? And then eventually I did get the courage and signed up to be a teacher. And then within a year, Spirit had me open a yoga studio by chance. And,
Wow.
and I
So
ended up serving thousands of people over those 6 years. So
that's so obviously this was when you was
wild.
in LA. Obviously the self-limiting beliefs came in for a period of
Oh,
time. You was
yeah.
doing a lot of work, you was doing a lot of work on yourself. Obviously you said that you was a yogi from 20 years of age. Then at
Yeah.
28 you left your corporate role, and you said you were saving your life.
Yeah.
So what was your life like in the corporate role? Like what was you doing?
It was,
What was going on there?
well, I was what you call a functioning borderline. So on the outside, I looked really normal, and I held a job. I was assistant property manager. But behind closed doors, I was having psychotic breakdowns on a regular basis. And I was like, the only people that saw that were like my boyfriends or my family members, and it was scary for them, because they would
Mm.
see me go into these emotional spirals where I had no control, and I had to exhaust myself before I I would just basically crap out, because I would cry uncontrollably. I would be hitting myself. I would be trying to break my head open on walls and floors. I had no control. It was like I was stuck inside this body and I just wanted out. And it was because of that, going through these kinds of episodes, that I nearly took my own life on many occasions.
Okay.
Which is why I left my job, because I had gotten to a place where I was like peaceful about it. And that's when it scared me, because I was no longer writing the suicide notes and crying and wanting the attention. It was just like, I'm making peace with, I'm not going to live this life much longer. And that scared me. So
Yeah.
this is what prompted me to go to HR and say, hey, you know what? I need to get some serious help. I'm not going to make it if I don't. So
Yeah. So obviously that's quite. I appreciate you being vulnerable and actually sharing
yeah,
that, because obviously, it can trigger. Sorry, maybe even people can relate in some way. They might know friends that's gone in some way. Obviously, you're quite open, which is great. Because obviously, I definitely think there needs to be awareness around this. So obviously, you'd reached out for help. So was there anyone? I'm only curious. Was there anyone at that stage in your life that gave you that space to be safe and open up, or did you have to really battle it out on your own? Did you have a call in? I'm just wondering,
yeah,
like, what got you out, because this is a low place, right? This is like a dark place where you don't want to
oh
be
yeah.
here anymore. So I was just wondering what you did to get out of it.
Well, I did have a boyfriend at the time. I ended up ending that relationship because it was so toxic
Right.
it wasn't going to help me heal. And so I basically blew up my whole life at that stage. And I left our apartment. He and I broke up. I now am just trying to figure it out. I'm on my own because his friends were my friends, and now I have no friends, and my family had basically had enough of me. So they weren't there for me very much, because they, you know, you see enough of a behavior, you experience enough of it. People who have experienced someone with borderline, it's abusive, right? I wasn't necessarily physically abusive, but I was abusive towards my family members, and so I had to go through that journey alone, and the people who helped me were my therapists. And those were the people who actually saw underneath it all and gave me, I would say, they gave me the belief when I didn't have the belief in myself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
so this
powerful.
is right. And I'm sure you can relate to that too,
Yep.
as a person who has held space for people. Like, how many times have you done that for someone? You believe in them because they're not there yet. And just that tiny little bit allows them to take that step forward.
Mm.
Right. And this is to me like one of the greatest gifts that we can give to people.
So I can't agree more. I think the point of the belief aspect is so key. So I'd love to know now, then, if you can remember. I know this is
Yeah.
going back, a few years. Was there anything that one of your therapists had said that just changed everything for you,
It
or
was
a session
when
that you had, or
Yeah, it was when I told her I wanted to become a yoga teacher. And then I didn't believe that I could, and she looked at me, she just smiled. I remember the moment, and she smiled. She said, "Denise, you would make an excellent yoga teacher."
ah,
And that was the moment that I was like, "Oh, well maybe I can do this then." Right? And it was like that was the first time I felt like somebody actually believed in me. And that's what gave me the courage to sign up for teacher training.
wow! And then within a
Mhm.
year, you was opening a studio.
I opened a studio. I know it was, I just feel like that's been my life. It's like, oh, here, we're not going to dip you in. We're going to throw you in and you're going to get thrown in with the wolves and just figure this out.
Yeah.
But I did. But I always knew that I think on a spiritual level, like I was always meant to help people. And because I had that studio, I was actually still healing borderline at the time. Nobody knew it for years. I was a yoga teacher to them, but I had so much shame around it. I wore a mask, and I
Mm.
was like, no, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm, here to help people. But I was also self-sacrificing. I wasn't in self-love at that stage. And I was burning out. And because of that, this is actually what created like a huge awakening in 2013, where I was in a surfing accident that split my face open and got
Oh,
29 stitches, and then it split me open. And that shortly thereafter, I started recognizing um, how much more still at that stage had come to surface around borderline, because I was no longer holding it together. And I went back to my therapist. I started working with her again. This is when I took off the mask and I literally told the world through an article in Elephant Journal that I was living with borderline. And I thought that that was the end of me. I thought that that was going to be the thing that everybody, I was going to lose all my students. I was going to lose my business. But then suddenly I became somebody else's voice, and I became courage for someone else.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, you've
Yeah.
exposed yourself to the world
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah. It
and
was like one of the
that's
hardest things I've ever done.
yeah, I can imagine, and again, well done for doing that, because imagine that fear of losing everything because you're really opening up, being vulnerable, but actually
Yeah.
the result and the outcome couldn't have been better, because people have you've opened up a can of worms for people to go, well, if she's doing it, so can I. Oh my god, oh, there's actually somebody out there that's got what I've got, and oh, because you feel a bit sort of like you say, oh, if I do that, I'm not going to fit in. If I do that, people are going to
Yeah.
judge me. But you just yeah. But obviously, just with this feeling of okay, oh, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to put myself out there. Did you say that was after when you had that accident with the
It was, yeah,
right?
it was after the accident, and because I recognized that if I was going through this, that means there are other people who have been through similar things,
Yeah,
and I just felt this deep soulful calling that I needed to share my story because it was somebody else's story.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and that article ended up with tens and thousands of reads. I
I can
still, to
imagine.
this day, get emails from people saying, "Thank you for writing this. I
Yeah.
have borderline," or "I know somebody with borderline," and so it ended up becoming a gift, but that was the catalyst for that led me into what I'm doing now.
Mm.
Right? And it's like, I didn't know that then. And, I didn't even see myself as a public figure at that stage. I was just like, "Oh, I'm a yoga teacher in this small studio in downtown LA." Um, but I started getting the whispers at that point, like, "No, you are meant to help the masses. You are meant to go global." And I'm "Oh, that's a lot of responsibility,"
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't wanna, that's a lot, I don't want that, because that means you gotta show up, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's already a lot of change going on, right? So obviously, you said about you had this calling inside of you that you here on this planet to help people, transform
Yeah,
people, guide people, create a
yeah,
safe space for people. But
yeah,
you could never have done that, or never have found or got to that place unless you obviously worked on yourself first,
yeah,
right? You had to
yeah,
fix and heal yourself so that then that become clearer. But then I guess that first step was you'd already done yoga, so I guess it was there anyway. You was doing a pattern quite often that was a calling, but it took a bit of time, right? It took 8
oh,
years
yeah,
to sort of get to a place, and this is where people try and rush things, right? And it's just so people can understand that you got to a place where then you was talking to somebody that you felt safe around, and this is how important it is to feel this, to open up. I want to become a yoga teacher. She was like, oh my gosh, wow, yes, you go. Then you've done it. Then you've like got into this place, and then one thing's led on to another, and then you sort of found yourself in the yoga place. Did you say you felt like you were putting a little bit of a mask on in the yoga space? Did you say as a teacher, or
that's hilarious that you said the yoga place, because that's literally what my yoga studio was called, the yoga
was it?
place.
Was it? Oh
Yeah,
no
and that's
way.
why I named it the yoga place, because I would hear people say, "Oh, you know that yoga place on
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah. That's a
Roman
good
5th and
name.
Santa Monica?" You know? So that was
That's so
right?
crazy.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so good.
universal.
I know,
Um,
so good.
yeah, sorry, what was your question? I got diverted
No,
there.
I know, no. So I was just saying, so sort of like you went into the yoga place, for obviously how long is it? 6 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
I owned the studio for 6 years, and but I was burned out, like I worked
Okay.
5 days a week for 7 years, actually, even after I closed the studio, and so this is where everything shifted for me. And then when I went into the coaching world, I was still working long hours, thinking that, oh, okay, now I'm doing something with purpose, and I have to self-sacrifice. But then I got a huge hit with I had a chronic illness with mold, and
Oh.
yeah, and it was bad. It was like so bad that I had to throw out all my furniture and half of my belongings, and my body was really ill, and I couldn't work. the way that I was, because now my organs were healing, and it took 2 years. So this is all during COVID. It was just wild. Like, yeah. So I had to restructure my entire coaching business during COVID. And this is, but that's when the Self-Love Alchemist was born, was in 2019. Right after, like, it was after I started pulling back and I started like reworking some things in the business. And then right after that, COVID hit. So it's just so fascinating, like, step by step. And then here I was already in isolation, and then the world goes into isolation 6 months later. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so it ended up giving me this really strong foundation. And I think that, for anybody who's starting their own business, and I think this will be really helpful for those who are listening, is that it's a step-by-step process. Like, I
Yeah.
started out as a dream builder coach. I started out here, right? What I've become now, it has taken 8 years almost, right? It's like, because the more that you stay in the path of it, the more creativity starts to come through, the more authenticity comes through, the more your voice starts to come through, because you have to develop yourself in these areas, right? It's not going to be a straight line. And it's like, I have reworked my coaching business in so many different ways. I was like, whoa, I've done this and this and this and this. I keep playing with it. Why? Because I love what I do, but also, how do I keep adding more value? Right. So you're always going to find another level if you stick with it. But this is why the foundation of self-love, and having your practices and your rituals and your routines, and having the foundation internally, is so important, because this is going to be your baseline for everything that you do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's the anchor, that's the foundation. I
Yeah.
feel that that's what people have got to hear more of. So thanks for sharing that, Denise, in terms of, look, it isn't a straight line. You are going to constantly develop. You're going to probably try something, go back to what you did before. I can relate to that. I've also known so many guests that have shared something similar, but probably not like the way you've articulated it. And it's very important to hear as a message, because most people probably won't start or jump into what they know, an itch that they want to scratch, or something that's inside, because they want it perfect. They want it all figured out before, they just sort of jumped into it. So I just want to know, because you was a yogi, right? Obviously, you've done it all your life. You did a studio. That must have been really hard to close it and then go into this coaching space, because you'd been so used to seeing people
Yeah.
every day, fully booked classes.
Yeah. It was
Tell
hard.
us
And
about,
it
yeah.
was like one of my students told me, she came to the last class and she was crying and I was crying, and she was like, I feel like I'm going through a breakup. And I was like, oh, but see, that's why I kept it open longer, was because I felt this incessant, like, obligation and love for my community. I loved the community that I built. Going from 0 students to thousands, and
Mm.
not necessarily recognizing it at the time, but it was a space for people to heal. This wasn't a space for people to come in with their cute Lululemons and practice, like, an egoic practice. Like,
Yes.
so many people came to cry and to grow and to heal, and that was the intention always. I
Mm.
didn't know that then, but reflecting back on it, that's what I recognized. And I was like, and then going into the space of coaching, because there was a gap in between closing the studio, and then I was a solo yoga teacher for a while. I was a body worker for a while, and then I was recognizing this isn't it.
Okay.
There's more, right? Like, I've
Mm.
studied sound healing, I've studied body work, I've studied, EFT. And I'm like, but there's something else. And then I went to a seminar, and that was my first seminar with my then mentor, and she was my first mentor. And that's when I knew, like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. But I had a problem because I didn't have any money. I had just filed bankruptcy the year before. So I had no
Oh
money.
my
I had
gosh.
$0.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I've been through so much. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I had $0. Yeah, because I spent all my money on my healing process, right? Like, through going, at the stage after my accident, like that's when I started going into therapeutic practices that insurance doesn't pay for. Right. So I went broke trying to heal myself. And so it wasn't like I was going shopping. I was literally like going for sessions and, investing in my body and trying to really get better from everything that had come up. So, I think like when I got to that place of, all right, $0, now I have to find the money. And I did find the money just in the nick of time within like 4 hours of the deadline. And I've never worked so hard to like in the modules in the online aspect of the courses before the live training happened. And I had 6 weeks. And so it was like, I was just uber focused and I was like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just knew that I had no safety net and I was taking a huge risk. But here's the gift in it is that when you're literally following your soul's calling, it's scary as but
Yep.
here's what it will give you is you don't know what's down there, but you're going to grow your wings on the way down. And when I opened up my business and it was like everything was ready, it's like, okay, now you're ready for your first customers. Then you have to call people in. And because I had already started putting myself out into the world, my clientele started flooding in. And within 6 weeks, I was serving 10 clients. Within a year, I had hit 6 figures. So,
Wow.
That's the thing is that when you know that you're aligned, right? I mean, obviously I was still in the hustle mode. I don't hustle anymore. I don't believe in that. But because I didn't have a safety net. But the thing is that if you start learning how to surrender more into the process of what you're becoming or who you're becoming, this is when everything starts to fall into place and starts to align.
Yeah, this is gold, by the way, just what you're sharing. I really like it because the fact that you said about the bankruptcy part, but then just the bits after that, the things that were sort of coming up for me is, like money comes and goes. It can come back around, right? Time can't. Time, once it's gone, it's gone. So even in those moments, you were finding money, you were doing everything you can, but it was still serving you. It was all on you to build this because you knew deep down inside of you. Again, people know. They always know that there's something that they want to do, but there's just that voice that keeps holding them back. I just wanted to ask you, I mean, it was great what you shared. What kept you moving forward? What kept you going? What kept that light inside of you burning, fired up to not just go,
Yeah.
I'm just going to suffer
Just
in
give it up.
silence and give it up. See you later.
It's one mantra that came to me when I was writing the article when I came out in 2014 with Borderline. And I was terrified to send that article out into the world, but I just kept having this thought that if this helps just one person, this will all be worth it. And this has literally been my mantra. And it's still like it even now makes me emotional because anytime I'm going through another growth spurt, if I can just get through this and help one person, then this will all be worth it. Right? So remember why you're doing it. Because if you start forgetting your why, you're not digging deep enough.
Yeah, there's got to be depth to it, like you say. There's got to be below the surface. You've got to go within yourself. Like, everything you've sort of been saying has flowed really well, especially with what you're sharing. Like, you're sharing experiences that you've had in life that I know people can frown upon. They could judge. Obviously, they don't know the real behind it, but they also will see and know that, okay, she's aligned with a why. She's going after what she wants. I think the bit where you'd sort of said, you was basically in bankruptcy, and then within you got this calling, you had guidance, and then within 6 weeks you landed the clients because she was aligned. You was going after what you wanted to truly do and serve and give back to people, and then within 12 months you're surpassing 6 figures. That goes to show what's possible. in
Yeah.
even a short space of time when you're doing something that, and I'm going to use the word because obviously this is definitely related to what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because even with yoga, like there were days where I just got burned out with it, with coaching and hypnotherapy and helping people heal and grow and all the things transform. I don't get tired of it. I might like if I start to like if I'm not giving enough to myself, that's the only time I feel it. But other than that, it's it's like I'm more in love with what I get to do today than I was yesterday. And this is,
Mm.
almost 8 years later, like I feel so grateful that I can say that, right? It's just like it keeps me going and it keeps me creating, and I get so many ideas that I'm like, "Oh, God, where do I," like I want to put this out and this out. And my VAs are amazing because they've learned how to be in my flow with me when I have a new idea, and they're like, "Oh my God, Denise, like where's all this coming from?" And I'm just like, it's just pouring out of me, and so it's just fun. Like I have fun with it. And even, the stuff that we don't have fun doing in the business that we have to do, I find a way to make it fun and interesting in itself anyway, right? Because it's still feeding the thing that we love.
Yeah. So I've got to ask that then. So when you say about the fun element and like the VAs, people like how do you do that? I mean, because obviously people could probably think, listening to this, if they're going to start a business, that it's serious. You got to know your numbers. It's a lot of responsibility to take on when you are becoming your own boss in a way, especially if you've been used to sort of being guided and led and directed in an employed role. So yeah, I just love to know how did you sort of make it playful and fun and creative? Because I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, I studied with a really great mentor, and she taught me the business. So I knew what I needed to do to make it a thriving business. But also, it was like, okay, if I've got these logistics in place, then that leaves room for creation, right? And now that I have basically the way I'm going to say it is get your systems in place. Getting them in place is going to be the hardest part because it's not super fun and it can be frustrating because you have to learn some new stuff. And also, you want to keep up with things, right? Like AI, you want to keep up with that.
Yeah,
Why? Because it's here.
it is.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying every part of it, but I use AI. I've been using it for the last year and I'm like, holy shit, this is brilliant. Sorry, I don't know if I can
Mm.
say that.
You
But
can
like
you can swear. Yep. Yeah.
oh, great. I'm like, it's brilliant, if you know how to use it properly, right? And that's the thing, because I think you and I just had this conversation right before, right? About like people want connection.
Yes.
So for those people who are like AI, and I've heard people say that, like, but Denise, you don't understand, like, it's going to take over everybody's jobs, and I'm like, hold your roll. I'm like, AI can never take over somebody's soul and their essence, which is why it never bothered me when somebody said to me, but Denise, there's so many coaches in the world. What makes you think that you're going to succeed? Because we don't need another coach. And I'm like, on the contrary, there are 8 billion people on this planet, and some of those people are meant for me. And guess what? I'm going to stay in my lane. I ain't going to listen to that.
Good for you.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's key there. Again, just for people to sort of understand, because look, there's always external noise, but I think just coming back to sort of what you've been really focusing on as a good, I guess, mic drop bombs, golden nuggets, is that it's what you feel inside. It's sort of it's there. But also just being able to, I guess, as well, what you've done is you've been able to talk it out. You've been quite aware. You've had these, obviously, we don't wish this on anyone, but obviously you've had illnesses, you've had this mold, you've had a bit of an accident, and it's been a reset for you. And obviously we was talking beforehand, weren't we, that you sort of had a bit of another reset moment with a fever, and then realized, I think these have been sort of like a learning point for you to then have a look at things differently.
Well, yeah, because you know what? We're always up leveling. And whenever we go through, like, I wouldn't say like the flu that I had, right? 5-day fever and then a month of not feeling well, but giving me enough time and space to reflect on the last 3 years since I moved to Bali. that I have been in a different mode, right? Like I served 25 Tony Robbins events in 3 years on this time zone, on US time, on top of like 5 different certifications, on top of writing a book, on top of seeing global clients, on top of dot, 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 right? I did all of that, but that was my intention when I moved here. It was like, right, because before I moved here, so here's another dark night. Um, uh, 2020 to 2021, I lost 5 family members, including my
Oof.
mother, to COVID, which is why I moved to Bali. Because after I went through all that grief and lost everything, or what I felt was my loss, right? And I got into the Tony Robbins community, I started seeking fulfillment, and it led me to Bali. And then being in Bali led me to literally selling everything and moving here within weeks. So it's such a fascinating thing. And when I made that decision to move to Bali, I was like, okay, I'm really serious about my path now. I'm going all in. And that's where I've been. I've been all in for 3 years. And then, having this time to reflect, I was like, I'm at a new set point. I can still be all in, just not to that extent. So I'm looking at 2026 as like, oh, how am I going to fill my space in the way I want to? I live on a tropical island and there's so much I haven't seen yet because I was always in a training, or I was always in an event, or, recovering from the event. So now I'm like, all right, cool. Let's create even more fulfillment of what I would love. Right. So it's just, and that's the thing, it's just being aware of when you're being called to lean in to the next level. And to me, one of my mantras is less is more. Okay.
Yes.
Less is more.
Yeah, so and I know we'd been chatting in it. I think this leads on to the point where you said about the time freedom aspect. You value that a lot. Obviously, you've been in, and again, you've learned again. I don't believe in the hustle mode anymore, but you've been in the hustle mode. You've done the
Yeah.
working all the hours to earn as much money as possible to then now not earning. The less is more. So I guess it's like it's experiencing these things to extract
Yeah.
lessons and insights, and then knowing, like you say, you've been in Bali 3 years, and you're now reflecting and going, okay, I want to see more of the island. I can see where my coaching can develop. Like you said, you were developing different tiers. You're playing with it, but you're finding ways that work better for you. And I think this is, again, like, it's not a straight line. It's very up and down. And I think this is key for people that are listening, that are, wanting to take a leap into business, run their own thing, and just know that it has so many different avenues. And it's sort of like, it's kind of, I know we've got a finite time on this planet, but it's an infinite game in business because it just keeps evolving.
Yeah. But here's the thing, is what keeps you alive, right? Is like, I'm just gonna say what my mentor told me, my first mentor. She said, when you're looking at your calendar for next year, schedule your fun first.
Wow.
Right? Because otherwise, you're always going to try to keep looking at the calendar to see when you can fit it in. If you schedule your fun first, because when we're in fun, we're in flow. And guess what? That's when I'm the most creative, if I'm being honest, is when I'm not in it, when I take a step out of it and I come back to it, I'm like, whoa, that's how I wrote my book. Like, I wrote my book in 2 days, literally sitting in bed after I had taken a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mad. It's funny you say that, because I find this when I go away in different environments. Like, if I go and take a holiday, it's like I find myself, like, content creation wise or ideas for the business. I mean, it's really hard to sort of distinctly completely shut off, because I guess you're starting to slow down, aren't you? So all that sort of in it, and then you sort of then switch on to, like, maybe you've taken a view outside and looking on the business more, but you're on holiday, really. I mean, you still can be present, but I find myself being so, like you say, so creative. And you come back and you're like recharged, and you've got these, different ideas for
Yeah.
what it is that you want to do.
You start to become more inspired. And what does inspired even mean? It means in spirit, right? You're
True.
connected. And the
Yeah.
only way that you can really truly be connected is when you're present. And when we're here in our heads all the time trying to problem solve every little thing, we're not leading from where we're meant to lead, which is our heart. Because
Mm.
our heart is actually what's guiding these things, right? It's not our head. Yes, we need our brain. Yes, we need this to help us problem solve. But I will tell you, the answers are not going to come from the head. They're always going to come from the heart. So that
Mm.
was one of the greatest things I learned from Tony Robbins, right? And he talks about it even at UPW. He talks about gratitude and going into appreciation and why we need to get ourselves out of this mode of thinking our way out of all of our problems and start learning how to feel.
Mad. So good. I'm like loving this because the last guest that was on the show that I recorded earlier this week, I mean, I'll ask you the question at the end, but I'll just give you an example. She said, don't think, just feel. And she's an author as well. She does like quite dark sort of like thrillers and stuff like that. But it's amazing, like the way you said that. And do you know what? I've never heard that before, Denise, where you said about inspired, going in spirit.
In spirit. Yeah.
Because
exactly it.
It's quite an insight that I think that's why I've sort of said it again, because I think like again the people listening to this will I mean when you say it so naturally, but it hit me and I was like, oh wow, that's actually pretty cool, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing, right, is that everything we do, like in my perspective, we're always operating out of two things. We're either operating out of fear or love. Fear is contractive, love is expansive, right? If we put more focus on love, on gratitude, on appreciation, on joy, on kindness, on compassion, on empathy, what do you think that you're going to start attracting more of with ease?
Yeah,
Right?
with
It's
ease. Yeah,
it's
definitely.
when right? It's when we're in fear. Oh, but I have to get it done and I have to do this. But how am I going to find the money? And how am I? You're not putting faith in the higher power, in your higher self, right? Because when you are aligned in love, this is when things happen out of the blue. This is how the money came to me when I didn't have the money to become a coach. This is
Yeah.
how I've manifested everything, is when I took my hands off the steering wheel and started putting more faith into my higher self. Yes, I was taking action, but I was taking inspired action. I wasn't taking action from fear, because every time I
Yes.
took action from fear, I hit a roadblock.
Yeah, it's fair. I like the point of restriction and then expansion. I think that's a really good distinction, especially with the love aspect and the fear, because I reckon if people and I know this because I feel it. I'm exactly the same. I've been in fear quite a lot in certain aspects, and I know where I talk to myself in here, and I know what sort of happens, and it's so true. And I think a lot of people will be in fear, right? Like there'll be a lot more fear driven or led rather than love led, and I think that's really key there to help them. So if someone, I know there's a lot to this, but if there's something that someone can start actually consciously thinking about today or doing to help them just shift a little bit more into being love led or more love than fear,
Yeah.
what would you sort of say to them that could help them?
Well, for one, fear, don't be afraid of fear, because fear is a set point. I mean, think about it, like fear is really just telling us we haven't done something before, right? It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It just means that you haven't done it. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're feeling some fear. So anytime fear comes up, I'm like, oh, hey, fear. I
Yeah.
feel you. I see you. All right. All right. So I calm my nervous system down first, right? Because I want to go into panic mode, right? This was me anxious as a kid, not getting my needs met. What if everything falls apart and then I'm left with no electricity, no home, no food, right? Like these are I'm catastrophizing. But if I take a beat, take a breath, calm the nervous system, right? I don't know how, but I know the answer is on its way to me.
Mm.
And when you start putting more focus on the faith, more focus on love, more focus on connection, more focus on joy, and coming back to your why, I promise you the answer is going to show up. And I want you to think about this too. This is something that I teach, is think about your emotions, right? Because we're as human beings, we're spiritual. Well, it's my perspective. We're spiritual beings having this human experience, and we are an ocean of emotion. And think about what happens when the wave of emotion starts to come up. It brings up all this sediment and sand from the bottom. So then you can no longer see the bottom, right? But then when the wave settles, everything starts to relax back down. And then suddenly you can see again. That's the same that's happening internally.
Mm.
So you have to start learning how to heal your nervous system. So it's not having those continued patterns and triggers to, I am going into survival mode. I'm going into fight or flight.
Yeah, that's so good, and I think I love the analogy as well. By the way, I think that's so good, and it is true, and I think quite a reflective sort of task, I guess, for sort of the guys listening, because you're absolutely right. We are an ocean of emotion. That is for sure, especially at certain stages of our life. But again, it sort of anchors, and it comes back to what you've really drilled into this episode is remembering your why. That's why I sort of asked that question, and it's so true. I just want to ask you this before we sort of get towards the end, because obviously you're in Bali, right? Obviously I know you had a lot of suffering, I guess, and trauma and loss of family through what was an unprecedented time, horrible time. I just want to know what brought you to sort of sell everything and go to Bali. Why Bali?
I was called. It felt, somebody had mentioned Bali to me, and I had wanted to come here in 2018. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And then in 2019, I was turning 40, and I was like, I'm going to spend my 40th birthday. But then that's when I got hit with the mold illness. And so, a few years later, right, 2022, that was the year I was seeking fulfillment, and I was traveling a lot that year. And somebody had mentioned, why don't you go? Because I said, well, I don't know where to go for my birthday this year. And she said, well, why don't you go to Bali? And then something just landed, and I was like, yeah. And then there were some things kind of happening that were already giving me signals that I wasn't meant to stay in California and LA. So I took that signal, and I bought my plane ticket on a Friday, and I left Saturday. And I was like, I don't know what's out there, but I just need to keep taking a step forward. And basically, this was a lot of what I've done in my past is I've burned my boats where I don't have a safety net. I don't have a home to come back to right now. I've just got to keep moving forward and see what's out there. And that's what I did, is I made this commitment to myself. I have a foundation. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in the land of Bali, and I'm going to rebuild myself here. And I just took this 4 to 8 weeks. But then in that time frame, it was clear to me that this was my next home. I was asking for a signal. And then I gave my notice. I had 3 weeks to seal up 24 years of my life. Somehow did it, moved back, came back to Bali, and I've been here ever since.
That's mad, but so good. It's actually quite moving, inspiring to sort of hear, because I just find that that's scary. Again, going into the fear, but you had that calling. You sort of, I mean, like you just said, you've just wrapped up 24 years of life in California, which a lot of people live there. It has lots of, but you just knew something had to change. Just to summarize that, then, in the 3 years that you've lived in Bali, what's sort of been the best thing for you? What have you really enjoyed the most about living in a completely different country?
There's so much I love about Bali, like its simplicity. I don't have a lot of things anymore. I don't like managing a lot of things. I recognize what's really important. Like for me, at least, I like slowing down. I like living a peaceful life. The world is slow here. Like you go out, and I go out into the village, and you literally see kids playing with kites and flying kites in the rice fields and riding their bikes, and families, it's multi-generational families that live together in their compounds. It's very family oriented where I live. And so you have a really big mix of the they call us the boule, we're like the non locals, and then you have the locals, and then it's Hindu here as well. So they're always moving energy, and it's like, even though energetically things move fast, the lifestyle is slow here, and I love the pace. And for
Mm.
me, it works because less is more.
Yeah,
Less is
that's
more.
so good. Yeah, so good. And the fact that I know there'd be loads, you could say the typical things, what people are probably, oh, beaches, whatever, paradise. But just it's actually, you've really said some deep stuff there about it. It is what you want. You like the peace. Obviously, you've spoken about how safe it is with the kids, all that kind of stuff. That's really, really good. Well, look,
Yeah.
Denise, we are getting to the end. And this is a question that I ask every single guest. And I'd love to ask your perspective on this. So, what does mastering your life mean to you?
It means pure fulfillment and pure joy. It's living in alignment.
So good. So good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So this is so good. So if anyone's sort of listening in, watching back on this, like, oh my gosh, I want to connect with you, Denise. I want to sort of see what you do. I've really loved the things that you've shared. Where can people connect with you? Is there any place that's the best place for that?
Yeah, I would say, socials are great. Instagram, Denise Michelle XOXO is, I would say, my main hub. And,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a really great place. You can go to my website, bridgetolove.com, and check out a little bit more. But yeah, it's just, I'm all over the socials, and I'm just always putting some free things out, and just giving tidbits of information, asking quality questions, just serving. I just love to serve. And I hope that it lands in your heart too. Come join the fun.
Oh, yeah, come join the yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll make sure all of those links and stuff, Denise, going on the socials. But yeah, just the guys listening in, please do follow and support Denise's journey. I think there's a lot to learn, and sort of be a part of it in some way. I think that it's just amazing, sort of what you've shared, and I appreciate the so raw and openness in what you've been through. Because obviously, I know we've not covered everything, and it's so hard in 1 hour, but we've covered a lot, and you've shared a lot as well. So thank you for that.
My pleasure, my honor. Thank you so much, Luke, for having me.
No, it's been great, and yeah, I can't wait for this episode to come out. So thanks again for your time as well, Denise, because I know the time zone is 8 hours difference, and we've made it work.
Yes, we did. Awesome. Thanks.